because for the first time in their lives, they can use the parks, they can walk on the streets. You have people who can walk freely at night without having to worry about being robbed or mugged or wearing their watches again.
That was Stephen Miller's dystopian fantasy. The guy's not right in the head. Here's my reality. Walking in D.C. in a park at night with my family. Cherry blossom time last spring. Do I look scared? My family walks for an hour every night, every time we're in D.C. About 3-4 times a year. We don't carry watches. We carry cell phones. This whole idea of Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Fox News, that Washington, D.C. was a hellscape before the National Guard came in, it's bull hockey. You know what scares me? Washington, D.C. right now, an armed, militarized force, not trained to be police. Many of them MAGA. What's MAGA about? People who say they hate people like me, people who voted for Trump because they want revenge upon people like me. That scares me. We've been through this before. Kent State, 1970. Look it up. National Guard, tens of them lost it, started to shoot at innocent people. 4 people were killed. The National Guard isn't trained to be police. They're trained for war. And what Stephen Miller has done is turned D.C. into a war zone. Those people aren't there to protect citizens. They're there to create a police state and to protect one person, Donald Trump.
Hello guys, you have watched the video. Adolf Hitler had Joseph Goebbels. Benito Mussolini had Galeazzo Ciano. People who control propaganda for them. I'm not drawing any comparisons here, don't get me wrong, but Stephen Miller is the chief propagandist of Donald Trump.
A childhood friend of White House Deputy Chief of Staff and puppet master Stephen Miller is speaking out about their past relationship. A man by the name of Jason Eilis claimed that they were elementary school friends. They hung out, they ate lunch together all the time. Jason claims that in the summer going into their freshman year of high school, he kept calling Stephen, which was a normal occurrence, to hang out, and Stephen wouldn't return his calls. Stephen finally returned his calls a few days before their first day of high school and started peppering him with questions about his Latino heritage. Jason said he answered Stephen's questions and told him about his ancestors that had originally come from Mexico. Stephen then told Jason that they could no longer be friends. Jason said that was the last time he ever spoke to Stephen Miller. Other high school acquaintances of Stephen Miller have come forward in the past and said that he was very bizarre. His nickname in high school was Dark Clown. They said he developed his conservative ideology very early on in high school, kept to himself, and was just bizarre. Miller's elementary school teachers have also talked about Stephen Miller, saying he was a very odd dude. One teacher said he loved to pour glue all over his arms, pick it off, and then eat it. Now, I'm not going to lie, I used to pick glue off my fingers all the time too, Elmer's glue, but I never ate it. I mean, that is clearly the behavior of a sociopath.
Stephen Miller lived on my dorm floor in college, and we managed to get him evicted for the following weird stuff he did. Stephen used to publish a daily enemy list. On the top of his list one day was Steve from Blue's Clues, and we asked him why he hated Steve. He said because he has hair and he's universally loved, and that will not stand. So we all started dressing up in green rugby shirts to piss him off. Stephen was always very prudish and awkward. Whenever he found out someone was in someone else's dorm room overnight, he would sit outside in a cloak and wait for them to leave to go home. And then he would follow them around and ring a bell and scream shame. Stephen wasn't very romantically popular, but apparently his roommate said he would walk into Stephen's room and Stephen would be holding a portrait of Margaret Thatcher saying, "You're my iron lady. Please be my daddy." And he would like whisper other weird stuff to her. Stephen would always complain that things were too lax. He would report people for laughing too loud or for smiling, which all made sense because one time his mom showed up to the dorm room at 1 o'clock in the morning and he ran out, screamed, and gave her a hug while he was crying because she brought him his favorite blankie, which was a 1984 blanket. When we asked Mrs. Miller why Stephen loved that blanket so much. She said, "My Stephen's afraid of the dark and nightmares, and only a totalitarian regime will give him the sleep he needs." It's a satire, but nothing would surprise me about this guy's background because he doesn't seem very happy.
This is a man who needs counseling, not power. Because we need to visit this man's past to see if they were abused as kids. Because maybe they have some weird fetishes or weird imaginations which they want to satisfy. Maybe someone has a fetish of seeing people get harmed, seeing people suffering. Maybe that is who Stephen Miller is. Maybe this guy, we are giving power to someone who is showing a psychopathic traits, someone who is out of touch with reality, someone who has no human emotions, someone who is soulless. That is the guy we are giving power. Someone who needs counseling, not power.
Charlie Kirk is encouraging the Trump administration, and specifically Stephen Miller, to sue MSNBC for saying openly out loud that Stephen Miller is a white supremacist. Well, I would like to put it on record that Stephen Miller is a white supremacist who likes to be cucked by his robot wife.
Hey guys, I want to read something to you by Brett Molnor, Voice of Reason on Facebook. Stephen Miller calls Democrats extremist as Trump deploys troops. This is not law and order. It's authoritarian war. In a chilling escalation of political warfare, Stephen Miller, now sitting in the West Wing as White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, went on Fox News Monday and branded the Democratic Party a domestic extremist organization. Let that sink in. The man writing the president's playbook is declaring that half of America, tens of millions of citizens who vote, organize, and hold office, are extremists to be treated as enemies. Words like this aren't sloppy rhetoric. They're the scaffolding for authoritarian rule. Miller's tirade came as Donald Trump deployed National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. on August 11th and dangled the threat of sending them into other Democratic-led cities, including Chicago. The pretext is always crime. The reality is projection. Red states lead the nation in violent crime rates, yet the administration paints blue cities as bloody, unaliving fields. Chicago's police force has not been dismantled, despite Miller's lie. It was Republicans who gutted community policing funding through their so-called Big Beautiful Bill. The rhetoric was not just false, it was grotesque. Miller compared urban crime in Chicago to the Cambodian genocide. This is not an accident. Authoritarians always reach for dehumanization. If your opponents are no longer neighbors or fellow citizens, but genocidal monsters, then any act against them can be justified. Troops in the street, mass arrests, political purges. Miller knows this, and Trump is listening. Trump's deployment to D.C. is a trial balloon. His musings about sending them into Chicago and other Democratic cities reveal the larger strategy: to intimidate, to control, to assert military dominance over political opposition. This isn't governance, it's conquest. No president in American history has openly treated domestic opposition as a battlefield to be occupied with soldiers. That line has now been crossed. What Miller and Trump are doing is classic strongman theater. Dress up authoritarian crackdowns as restoring order. Talk about saving civilization. Pretend this is about public safety while using the military to punish dissent. In truth, this is not order, it is escalation. It is state violence being prepped for deployment against lawful political opposition. Labeling the Democratic Party as extremist is not just insult politics. It is a deliberate effort to shift the framework from debate to war. If Democrats are extremists, then votes from them are illegitimate. If they are domestic enemies, then suppression becomes self-defense. This is how democracies are dismantled, not all at once, but step by step, speech by speech, deployment by deployment. And history is clear. Once a regime normalizes calling opposition parties enemies of the state, violence follows. Mussolini did it. Mustache Man did it. Orban and I don't know how to pronounce this. Erdogan have done it in our century. The script doesn't change because it works. And now it is being read aloud on Fox News by one of the most powerful advisors in the White House. What makes this moment so dangerous is not just the words but the timing. Trump has already shown he will deploy federal troops domestically with no respect for local leaders or consent. Miller is building the rhetorical justification for doing it again and again, aimed directly at Democratic strongholds. The combination is lethal. Propaganda from the podium, boots on the ground, democracy in retreat. This is not hyperbole. It is not partisan spin. It is the plain description of authoritarian tactics unfolding in real time. The administration is redefining dissent as extremism, political opponents as criminals, and cities as war zones to be pacified. This is not law and order. It is authoritarian war waged from the top of government. The American public must see through the performance. Do not be distracted by the flag-draped backdrops and the solemn talk of safety. What is happening here is an attack on the very idea of pluralism, on the principle that a government serves all its people, not just those loyal to the ruling faction. Trump and Miller are not saving civilization. They are trying to suffocate it. TikTok, I'm sharing all of this for educational and informational and news purposes to document the political and the religious climate of this country.
That's what we call profiling. And when they start profiling, what they are aiming to is taking away your rights. First, no banning of flags. First Amendment, no banning of flags. That is infringement of the First Amendment, right? When freedom of expression is taken, what do you expect? They want to take away your rights. They want to enslave you. They want to put you in concentration camps. But first, they have to profile you. Yeah, you have to be profiled first. Democrats are the extremists. From there on, let's send the National Guard to them. Let's put them into jails. Yeah, it's really about to get nice, but not for Democrats.
Pull up a chair, grab a barf bag, because today, in green cards for me, but not for thee, we're digging into the architect behind the cruelty of Trump-era immigration, Stephen Miller. Little Stephen Miller was born in Santa Monica, California, 1985. Yeah, he's 39 years old. And he was raised in a wealthy Jewish-American family. How did he end up there? His great-great-grandfather, Wolf Lieb Glasser, fled Antipol, what's now Belarus, escaping anti-Jewish violence in 1903, and arrived in Ellis Island. He had $8 in his pocket, spoke zero English, and had no skills. And then his wife Bessie and their children all followed using chain migration, the same thing that Miller now wants to eliminate. And when his great-grandfather initially arrived, he couldn't even pass his naturalization test at first. They settled in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, built a family business, and thrived. The American dream. But the thing is, if his family faced the very immigration policies that Stephen supports, they would have been turned away and they would have died, because just a few years later, almost the entire Jewish population of Antipol was murdered. Stephen Miller's family has publicly stated that they are horrified and disgusted by his immigration rhetoric. His very own uncle, Dr. David Glasser, has publicly stated, quote, "I have watched with dismay and horror as my nephew became the architect of immigration policies that repudiate the very foundation of our family's life in this country."
So Stephen Miller only wants white people in America. Are we shocked? The crazy part is everybody knew this man was a white Christian nationalist, and you let him in. He's even more far right and more far white than Donald Trump. Trump even recognized his obsession when it came to immigrants. Stephen Miller said if it was up to him, only 100 million people would be in the country. That is only white people. White people only. Yeah, Project 2025 is looking real fucking real now, ain't it? I wonder who's really running the White House now. Because Trump said that he wasn't going to fuck with farms and hotel workers. But he's in that ass now. And I don't think it was him. For once, I didn't even think it was him. For all you non-white people that voted for Trump, how do you feel now that they're trying to ethically cleanse us out of the fucking United States? I mean, it's going to be real hard to get rid of black folks because, you know, African Americans in particular, because we ain't got nowhere to go but here. But for everybody else, how the fuck do y'all feel now?
You heard the ladies, eh? Stephen Miller's grandfather came here as an immigrant with only $8 in his pocket. He got out, the country welcomed him, he started his business and thrived. And that is what Stephen Miller is taking away from hardworking immigrants who come here to make a living. People who are working in the construction, people who are working in the farming, right? H-1B visa holders who are coming to improve our technological companies. Hardworking people. Yeah, we are okay with taking away criminals, but what about hardworking people, separating families et al? This is a guy who has grown up in extreme wealth that he forgets that other people are suffering in the society. He forgets that. He thinks that everyone lives like he does. No, boy.
All right, I got more dirt on this Stephen Miller creep. Haven't seen anyone else talk about this, and I think Angelinos are going to find it very interesting. He's the White House Deputy Chief of Staff and the architect behind these wicked ICE raids. Here's what I found out on Wikipedia. He was the vice president of a company owned by his family. They own a bunch of real estate, and I went looking at where that real estate's located. They own residential properties in Latino neighborhoods in LA County, under the name California Villages. They own properties in Pico Rivera and West Covina. 2,500 residential units throughout Los Angeles County. Now, the reason I say dirt is because this man has designed a very xenophobic, racist program, and yet he was renting out to Latinos in LA, and this program has its fiercest operation in LA. Go check out some of the Google reviews yourself. Look at this one about roach infestation. California Villages. You're telling me this guy is a slumlord from LA? I can't believe it.
1 million FBI man hours spent on the border, Stephen?
So you're right. This is the thing that gives me the greatest concern about the future of this country is the millions of unvetted, unchecked, and just unknown foreign nationals who have been deposited into this country, not to mention the millions more visa overstays embedded into all of our communities, some operating at the direction and control of foreign governments, foreign enemies, foreign terrorist organizations, not to mention the cartels, which have spread so much bloodshed across this hemisphere that do business with some of our worst adversaries. But it's why, Sean, and I'll say this now, it's why it's so important to pass the president's big, beautiful bill. If that legislation hires 10,000 new ICE agents.
If you're wondering why LA right now, look no further than this man. It's not just Stephen Miller's dead eyes and his frequent ticking that cause people to question his humanity. It's his lack of empathy. And it always baffles me that this man, a known white nationalist, has the nerve to think that he is genetically superior to anyone. Hatred wears a body down. For context, Stephen Miller is younger than me. And while I'm sure we will continue to debate Stephen Miller's humanity, one thing is clear. The energetic disruptions in his body are caused by deep imbalances. You see, tics themselves are a result of neurotransmitter imbalances. It is connected to the spewing of hatred. It gets aggravated as he gets more stressed, as his anxiety rises and his body rebels against his internal disgust. They used to keep Stephen Miller hidden, but now they've gotten so brazen that they trot him out on morning TV. That feeling that you feel when he comes up on your screen is not a mistake. It is your humanity rejecting something that is so deeply inhuman. If you'd like to learn more, I am teaching a workshop at the end of the month, and I would love to see you there.
Stephen Miller, a family, they are renting out apartments to Latino communities, but they want you to hate the Latino communities, right? Rules for thee, but not for me. As long as a venture is making money, we can do it. So he wants you to chase away the immigrants, but he's renting them homes. Another thing, he's claiming that foreigners who come here, they are under the influence of foreign governments. Maybe, maybe not. Do you know how it is hard to come to US? The checks, the process of giving those visas, it's very hard. The background checks, right? So his claim is just a blunt lie.
You ever wonder what happens when a high school troll grows up and gets access to federal power? You get Stephen Miller. And this man didn't just whisper in Trump's ear, he wrote the whole damn playbook. Stephen Miller isn't just some advisor. He's the author behind Trump's most cruel, racist, and authoritarian politics. And he did it quietly, in a suit, all while pretending that it was about national security. You remember the Muslim ban? That was Miller. Family separation at the border? That was Miller. Trying to strip citizenship from immigrants legally living here? Yep, Miller. He's the reason zero tolerance became a government slogan. The man crafted policy like it was fan fiction for fascists. And you want to talk about connections? Stephen Miller was mentored by Richard Spencer, the actual white nationalist who coined the term alt-right. They went to Duke together, and Miller invited him to campus. Let that sink in. The dude writing U.S. immigration policy was once boosted by a literal neo-Nazi. And don't think he disappeared when Trump left the first time. He started a legal group called America First Legal, designed to sue the government every single time it tried to be decent. Trying to stop DEI programs? That's Miller. Attacking asylum protections? That's Miller. Lawsuits to block civil rights policies under the radar? Also Miller. And the scariest part is that he's not a loudmouth. He's a strategist. He's not tweeting insults. He's writing executive orders. He learned that power isn't about being liked. It's about embedding your ideology so deep within the system that even after you're gone, your fingerprints stay on the walls. Stephen Miller doesn't just advise Trump. He built a machine, one fueled by fear, whiteness, and legal loopholes. And it's still running. It's just a little quieter now. So we all know the bigotry has definitely resurfaced. We can see that in the court dockets, the school bans, and the borders. Stephen Miller never left. He just sharpened his horns and put on a nicer tie.
The sadomasochist responsible for snatching people off the streets and trafficking them across state lines also has really bad taste in food. And now that I think about it, that tracks. First, Pee Wee German's wife cucked him. And then this week, she launched her new podcast to express her distaste for her husband. Let's just say Stephen Miller is as repulsive to his wife as he is to the rest of us. In her first episode, Katie Miller had a very softball discussion with the Veep in which she asked him what his favorite condiment was. To his credit, the couch hobbyist said he prefers barbecue sauce. And this is the moment when Katie Miller told us that the man she chose to betroth is really fucking weird. She asked the Veep, quote, "Not mayonnaise?" To which he responded, quote, "No, is that a question?" He shared that he had a friend who used to eat french fries with mayo and that he thought it was really gross. Katie then shared that mayo is the only thing that Stephen Miller eats. JD Vance seemed surprised by this, so he asked Katie to clarify whether Stephen Miller liked mayo with french fries or like always, to which she responded, quote, "Period." The only thing the Veep could possibly respond with was, "Okay, wow, didn't realize." Katie Miller didn't stop there. She added, quote, "Yeah, he's only a mayonnaise guy." And so JD Vance replied, quote, "Okay, I learned something new about Stephen I didn't know." And Katie finally stopped throwing her husband under the bus by saying, "Yeah, it's whatever." That entire exchange just makes this photo that the Daily Beast pinned to the top of their article about this just chef's kiss. Making matters worse for Mayo Miller is that my governor, California Governor Gavin Newsom, chimed in on the former chief dipshit's social media platform, saying, quote, "Anyone want to guess why Voldemort does this? Will RT top replies. Patriot Takes responded with hashtag Mayo Miller. If they use spice, we send it ice. I can't keep a straight face through this. So Sunday Girl responded, mayo is the perfect food for him. No color, no flavor, and it keeps best in a cold airtight container. Another responder had his comment taken down, but the internet lives forever, so he said, because it's white, he's such a blatant racist, he probably doesn't even eat brown mustard. Even Katie Tur on MSNBC was like, I can't, I'm out. I just love that everybody hates Stephen Miller. It's just the best. In all seriousness, though, we all need a good laugh right now, and I'm not even a little bit guilty that it's at his expense. Now, food for thought here. Now that the cat's out of the bag that his wife hates him, and he's likely had a bad week as a result of that, we should all send him some care packages that include all of the mayonnaise.
This is a guy who was a key architect in the writing of Project 2025, which is aimed at giving a president unlimited powers, so as I can break the constitutional guardrails and become whatever he wants, right? That's why you can see Trump writing these executive orders, construction of these alligator, Alcatraz, whatever, Alcatraz jails. You can see sending of National Guard to Washington, D.C., threatening to send the National Guard again to all the major cities in the U.S. As in control is their aim. And my boy, if they control you, we are finished. So we should fight back against them because we have no other solution. Before they take it, let's fight back. We have allowed the far-right extremists into the government. Christian nationalists who don't even believe that a woman has the power to decide what they have to do with their bodies, if they can vote the way they choose to, right? So we are in a government that is taking away power from people slowly, and you're not realizing it. Slowly. And the next thing you realize, we are powerless because the executive orders, they are aimed at taking away our rights slowly, our constitutional rights, which is very bad.